this is very scary, and a lot of people have been afraid, especially in Europe, that Russia might use nuclear weapons. But by now, it's pretty clear that if there's something happening at the moment in 2024, the biggest danger is actually Israel using these weapons, which it has already threatened.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, the Russians have the Russians live in a very different situation.
Yeah.
They are confronting the West, basically the United States, but also France and the UK, which also have nuclear weapons. So they would be very careful using theirs, whereas the enemies of Israel do not have these weapons. Israel has a sort of nuclear monopoly in the Middle East, which makes it possible to use their own nuclear arsenal to threat as a threat to surrounding countries that these could not possibly answer.
Hello, everybody. This is Pascal, and today I'm speaking for the second time to Professor Dr. Wolfgang Streeck, one of Germany's most accomplished scholars in international relations. Professor Streeck was the director of the Max Planck Institute for the Study of Societies in Cologne, and besides his many academic publications, he also regularly contributes to popular magazines and blogs. A month ago, he published an important piece on Sidecar called Master and Servant, in which he discusses Germany's policy toward the genocide in Gaza and the role of the nuclear bomb Israel possesses in a potential wider regional conflict. This is the topic that we want to discuss today, so welcome and thank you for joining me again, Professor Streeck.
Thanks for having me.
Professor Streeck, what's happening with Germany? Why is it so unconditionally supporting Israel? We know by now why thanks to Walt and Mearsheimer, some of the institutional reasons for which the Americans are so beholden to Israel, and we'll talk about this a bit later. But why Germany? People don't understand it. In East and Southeast Asia, people don't understand Europe and Germany in particular. I mean, another genocide, and Germany is again on the side of the people who do the genocide. What's up?
Yeah. Now, in order to understand Germany, you have to take into account that history is a very strong force, and sort of it lasts long. In order to understand Germany, you have to remember the unconditional surrender in 1945, which divided the country not just in two parts, but large parts of what used to be Eastern Germany are now Poland, Czechia, and so on. Russia. What was left was West Germany, very small compared to what Germany used to be, and it was for sound reasons something like a pariah country that depended for its comeback as a respectable nation on its firm integration into the so-called West. Now, until 1990, the German unification, or even beyond Germany, Germany never had a sort of independent idea of its own national interest. It was very strongly under the American control or guidance. Up to now, I think 38,000 American troops are stationed on German soil. It's very much like the size is roughly that of Okinawa. Mm-hmm. And an unknown number of American nuclear bombs and other nuclear devices stationed in Germany, and Germany being used as the main operational base for American interventions in the Middle East, in particular in the war on terror. since 2000. So in the consciousness of German foreign policymakers is this idea that you should not be seen as Germany, but as part of something else, the West. Now, after 1990, it increasingly became Europe. If you ask a German politician where Germany's interests are, then they would probably say in Europe. Now, then add to this that part of the comeback of Germany after the Second World War was the very early relationship with Israel. Chancellor of the West German Federal Republic after 1949, and David Ben-Gurion sort of were frequently shown as sort of talking to each other on what Germany could do in order to pay something like compensation for the Holocaust. Adenauer-Ben-Gurion linkage was very important for the sort of the prestige of Germany as a halfway respectable country after 1949. And that sort of history, the absence of a national self-definition, plus the dependence on the United States of America and some sort of visibly good relationship with Israel, where Ben-Gurion was quite clear. He needed support in the sort of Zionist program of Israeli expansion in Palestine, and he got it. So when Angela Merkel, during her chancellorship, I think in 2008 or something, declared the existence of Israel to be the raison d'etat of Germany, which is a very bizarre idea if you think about it. Then that was not by accident. It was sort of the part of the German self-definition after 1955.
I very much sympathize with your historicizing of Germany's decision. On the other hand, even during the Cold War, it seems to me that some administrations like Willy Brandt, who had this famous Ostpolitik, right, was not in line with the Americans as strongly as today, 30 years after the fall of the Berlin Wall was. So something happened in these 30 years, and we see it not only in Germany, it's happening all over Europe. Even in like also places like Switzerland, where suddenly this idea that to be a good citizen of the world means to be in a West alliance with the United States against all the evil forces, be they in Russia, be they in the Middle East, be they China, and we, the good ones against the evil ones. And Germany seems just particularly strong in this one. Can you explain to yourself why that is?
No, first of all, I would like to say that this is a very accurate description, and also to the extent that it applies not just to Germany, but to the rest of the Western or whatever. And now, where does this come from? I would like to say that the Willy Brandt era was a time in which there were very sort of tentative, careful attempts being made not to be entirely under American patronage, and develop some sort of, as you say, independent idea on how Europe should be organized beyond and outside of the Cold War. That was risky. and Brandt and Genscher, the foreign minister then, were always at risk of being targeted by the United States as unreliable, and all of Kissinger in particular was was a very sort of difficult figure in this context. The sort of attempt of Germany to overcome this suspicion was that in the 1970s they offered the Americans to station intermediate range nuclear missiles in Germany, which was pretty risky because that gave the Americans two bases for firing at the Soviet Union. They could even use their European missiles sort of unilaterally and for a first strike, and then remain there, keep the other intercontinental missiles. Now then, Germany, as you remember, sort of the citizens, there were huge demonstrations against this stationing, and Kohl in the 1980s sort of ended this by accepting these American missiles, and that sort of made it easier in 1990 for the Americans to agree to German reunification. Yeah. I would say that from then on, there were instances of, you can say, secret obstruction of the American policy, especially in relation to Russia. In 2000, first of all, the axis Schröder-Chirac refusing to join the American invasion in Iraq. Then in 2008, Merkel and Sarkozy blocked the accession of Ukraine to NATO at the NATO summit meeting. They were the only ones, but they mattered, who told George Bush II in his last year as president that his deeply held desire to see Ukraine in NATO could not be fulfilled. Then they always had these moments where they try to be like something, to develop some ideas of their own. This ended with the accession of Donald Trump to the presidency. In European countries, this resulted in panic across the board.
And fear of abandonment?
Absolutely. Also, I mean, simply unpredictability. Yeah, when Biden came in, they were basically licking his feet. So grateful were they that the old American the posture returned after it had been completely unclear what Trump was planning, and to what extent he was still speaking for the American military and the secret services. Whether this was still an integrated government or Trump on top, and then there was a deep state doing what they want. In any case, even the Afghanistan disaster, the completely unilateral withdrawal of the United States from Afghanistan did not change this deep desire to restore the confidence of the United States in the faithfulness of its European allies, and it must be on this background that the reaction to the American Ukraine policy, and now to Israel, we will maybe talk about a little more on that, must be understood. there is now the same panic as there was in 1996 when Trump when was it 19 no no no
2016.
2016 when Trump was first elected and now we're really there's really deep fear that this could repeat itself, and everyone is trying to perform magical acts like swearing everlasting allegiance to the United States in order to prevent this disaster.
Voluntary servitude
Yeah,
and fear of abandonment, and then this leads to very fantastic things. I mean, including the acting chancellor standing next to the US president who says we will end your infrastructure project whenever we like. And it also led to the former chancellor saying that only thing she wanted to do with the Minsk agreements was to buy time to militarize Ukraine. I mean, these are hugely damaging things to do.
absolutely.
And it now leads to unconditional support of another incomprehensible project, which is support for probably the expulsion of I mean, in the best case, ethnic cleansing, in the worst case, genocide. This is as horrible as it is in Israel. And let's talk about this now, because in your piece you also allude to the fact that Germany has provided several submarines to Israel, and some of them might by now be equipped with nuclear weapons, in which case Germany must have had some knowledge if that went on. Could you explain this a little bit?
No, all of them. The six by now Dolphin class submarines are all capable of firing nuclear missiles. They are incredibly dangerous in the sense that submarines like this are very hard to locate. They can sort of go anywhere without anyone noticing, and then fire at almost any target, not just in the Middle East, but even in Europe. Absolutely devastating, powerful weapons delivered by the Germans, and the I think ThyssenKrupp, which produces them, basically now have this enormous technological knowledge how to do this. It's not easy to build these things. Now it is like what one has to remember on these things is that they give Israel not just a weapon of last resort in case its existence was threatened. The enormous nuclear power, nuclear arsenal of Israel already plays a role in the present strategic calculations of its government and the behavior of the countries surrounding surrounding Israel. Now the estimate is that they have about 400 nuclear warheads of very different kinds. If you talk about nuclear armaments, most people think about Hiroshima type of things that you throw on cities in order to wipe out a city. That can be done, but that can also be done with conventional arms, as you now see in Gaza. The more interesting part is that they now can be sort of targeted very precisely to all sorts of places, like, for example, troop concentrations in other countries. The difference between tactical and strategic nuclear arms is now almost wiped out. the Israelis do not just have these 6 submarines. They also have a huge fleet of fighter planes capable of delivering nuclear bombs, even going to Tehran and back without refueling, carrying nuclear payload. They also have missiles. They have the tripod. Submarines, missiles, and airplanes. Is all there, and it is by some estimates the most technologically sophisticated nuclear arsenal, just behind or on par with the United States. To me, the fact that the present Israeli government can pursue the kind of strategy that they are now pursuing has something to do with the fact that they feel that if they're anchoring in American public opinion and American politics would be weakened. The Mearsheimer, the thing about the Israel lobby, then they would have their own tools to continue what they are doing, even if the Americans would refrain from supporting them, which, however, has a sort of intelligent feedback loop, because the more the Americans are aware that if they don't support Israeli policy in relation to the Palestinians, then the Israelis would do it themselves without American support, which forces the Americans to be very careful not to frustrate their allies, because they then might do things that are beyond the control of the United States.
We are at the point where the tail is not only wagging the dog, the tail is threatening the dog to punish it in case it doesn't go along. This is very scary, and a lot of people have been afraid, especially in Europe, that Russia might use nuclear weapons. But by now, it's pretty clear that if there's something happening at the moment in 2024, the biggest danger is actually Israel using these weapons, which it has already threatened.
Absolutely. No, the Russians have the Russians live in a very different situation.
Yeah.
They are confronting the West, basically the United States, but also France and the UK, which also have nuclear weapons. So they would be very careful using theirs, whereas the enemies of Israel do not have these weapons. Israel has a sort of nuclear monopoly in the Middle East, which makes it possible to use their own nuclear arsenal to threat as a threat to surrounding countries that these could not possibly answer.
Yeah, but in your article you go even further. I mean, you keep saying that Israel and the absolute religious fanatics who are running the system right now, they treat the Bible like a land registry. You use that.
Yeah.
This is a nice expression. And the second one is they keep coming back to religious analogies. And one of the ones that you fear about is the Samson option. Could you explain that one a little bit?
Yeah, that is this last resort part of the nuclear capacity, namely that you can threaten others, that the moment they attack Israel in a way that might annihilate Israel as a state, in that moment they would also be annihilated, because at that moment Israel would use its nuclear arms. I'm convinced that the really political impact of the Israeli nuclear arsenal is sort of way before this moment. It is Israel's existence is not at stake right now,
No.
quite to the contrary. But the enormous military superiority of the state sort of encourages it to do things that other countries would be able or willing or would fear doing. The Gaza operation is something that goes beyond anything people would have imagined in recent years.
Yes.
That this could happen in front of what in front of the world's public. And nothing happens, including apparently in the Gaza territory, 200 or more journalists have been targeted to be killed. I mean, even if 2 or 3 journalists up to now would be incarcerated in Russia or in Iran or whatever, the journalistic community all over the world would start protesting. You don't hear anything.
No, you don't.
Nobody talks about it.
But by now,
also, yeah. Also, if you follow the German television news, you see sometimes they cannot avoid to show this picture of these starving children who are approaching the trucks from the United Nations Relief Organization, holding out their fighting with each other for getting some of the food, a totally insufficient amount of food that the Israelis allowed to be taken in. But it's only 1 or 2 seconds that they couldn't cut for some reason. Otherwise, you never see them. Yeah, you never see them. There is a situation in which 2.2 million people are being sort of bombed out of their houses. They are deprived of medicine. They are deprived of food, of water, of electricity. Their journalists that could report about it are being eliminated, and nothing happened. At least in Germany.
Hey, the strategy by now is very clear, transparent, obvious, because most people spoke about it. They keep bombing them and make them disappear, either because at some point Egypt opens its borders or because they die. But Israel doesn't care. It just wants the people gone, and it has the audacity of pretending in front of everybody that Hamas is the one pulling off the genocide, and this is all on Hamas. And it's the fact that we believe that. So to us thinking people, you, I, people who watch this, the question is, how is it possible that tens of millions of people in the US and in Europe let that happen, and that the political process is such that it happens? Because we're back to the Holocaust, almost literally. I mean, the rate of dying is now approaching the rate of dying during the Holocaust. It's not quite there because there were several thousands a day during the Holocaust. But we're in the several hundreds. So
see, I'm not into these quantitative comparisons, but it's even if it's bad enough the way it is.
Yes.
And you don't have to go back to the eliminatory anti-Semitism of but you see what you see is something that is so monstrous that it's very hard to talk about it. Now you asked at the beginning why is it that that in a country like Germany in particular, this is not a daily topic. Now, even if you are, in order to give you some sort of phenomenological impression, if in this country you are being accused of anti-Israel, anti-Semitism, yeah, and the difference between let's say anti-Israelism and anti-Semitism has been sort of deliberately blurred. Yeah, you're always at risk of someone calling you an anti-Semite if you even name, even describe simply what is going on in this place called Gaza. Yeah, that in a country like ours, if you are, let's say, a journalist, you're in your 20s, you want to be a journalist, you want to be hired, promoted, or whatever, or you're a social scientist, or you are in some sort of official capacity as government, it will be noticed what you say. And the next time you apply for a job, it will be remembered that you, at a moment in which it was considered anti-Semitic, you were anti-Israel. So people become very, very careful about what they talk about. A sense of so then I mean, in order to illustrate what happened here, a few days after the war began, the Gaza war began, Jürgen Haber, the philosopher of unimpeded free speech as the most important tool of finding consensus in a democracy. Ja? Jürgen Haber, herrschaftsfreie Kommunikation. So made a public appeal together with 3 other people to the fact that, of course, one can talk about whether the measures Israel is taking sort of approach a threshold where they are no longer compatible, or what do you say, angemessen, yeah. But he said, those who say that, while they consider the war an opportunity to release an anti-Semitic attitude that they have sort of buried and hidden inside themselves for such a long time, those people cannot be allowed to do that. So that's the thing. Now then, you wonder who is going to find out whether, when you say that this is an absolute monstrosity and it must be stopped immediately, whether this is driven by a hidden anti-Semitic attitude, or whether not, or whether it is not. The way in which anti-Semitism has been defined recently is that it is not an act but an attitude, a feeling. Remember this Holocaust remembrance definition. Yeah, you can deny that you have that feeling, but then come the experts, Habermas and co, and they diagnose that what you said was not just disgust about what was going on, but it was driven by long hidden anti-Semitic attitude. What can you do? Can you go and say, I'm not an anti-Semite? That's ridiculous. Yeah. And so there is this suspicion deep suspicion sort of inserted in this public German public, that whoever says what he sees there, says what he sees, is saying it not because of disgust about this mass murder, but because he hates Jews. And you understand that this is sort of the cloud in which we are moving here.
Yeah, it's so sad, because in 150 years, you can then have Israelis and Germans and Americans who go and pray in Gaza for the land that was taken unjustly, and we hereby for the land. But by that time, it's all over, right? Even in a couple of months, it might be all over for
it might. Absolutely.
The politics is the art currently in a democracy of controlling the current 6 weeks. Narrative control, and we are in that, and we don't get out of it. And
it's all visible to the eye. So I think we're now counting 25,000 people dead in Gaza, 8,000 of them children. The number of Israeli soldiers that have been killed in battle is about 200 compared to 25,000. The number of Hamas prisoners of war. I mean, Israel is taking apparently no prisoner. We have not seen a prisoner of war camp where they have brought those terrorists that they have detected in Gaza. They are all dead. They themselves say that they have killed 8,700, the latest figure, 8,700 terrorists. But we don't see any prisoners of war.
I mean, it's in the ICJ case, the defense of the Israeli side is that they are committing war crimes, but not genocide. I mean, that's the level of defense. This is, it's just war crimes, just a couple of them, but not genocide. Because we need to close soon, but maybe your thoughts about a social media post that I read, which rang very much with me, which is that the racists of Europe, the greatest achievement of the racists of Europe was to make sure that all the Jews go to the Middle East and kill Arabs there.
The Jews I know, without any exception, are just struck by the amount of violence that the Israeli state is exercising in relation to these helpless people who have no planes, they have nothing. They use the F-16s to. I mean, proudly announced by the Israeli so-called defense forces that they targeted, I think, in the first days of the war, up to 100,000 targets in Gaza. Now Gaza has the size of Munich. How can you identify so many targets? And the explanation was they do it by artificial intelligence. Because normally identifying a target for your missiles and your air force and your planes with this sort of targeting killing machines takes 2 or 3 days. And they say we wouldn't have been able to find all these targets without artificial intelligence, which is basically drones telling the planes where there is something that looks like something, so that you can now fire it. It's all there. It's all. You can read it. if you look carefully enough. And the Jewish people I know are all maybe it's all my generation and all lefties and so on, but they are all absolutely shaken.
There was an instance in Germany when a Jewish protester who protested this was arrested while she was protesting alone. I mean, we are back to people, Jews being arrested for protesting, mass killing of other people.
Yeah, or artists or scientists who are disinvited. The Jewish disinvited in Germany, where they had to give a lecture or something because they have not sufficiently supported the state of Israel.
Very last question, very short. Do you have any hope that somebody outside the Western realm, be it Russia, be it BRICS, can help end it without a regional war?
I don't know. If we go back to this, to the impact of the latent presence of the Israeli nuclear arsenal, I think everybody is treating this guy Netanyahu like a raw egg, because they don't know. If they try to impose something on him, what he may do. 2 days ago, the foreign policy representative of the European Union, the Spanish Spaniard, forget the name, said something like a two-state solution will have to be imposed on Israel because the Israelis are unwilling to accept it. And then that was immediately withdrawn. No, we're not going to impose anything on Netanyahu. In my view, that would mean that they would get really nasty, or even nastier, and pull out the big stick.
Against the others, not just against the Palestinians, but against everybody around them.
Yeah. Sure.
Not very happy prospects, but I would like to thank you very much, Professor Streeck, for your insights.
Thank you.